One of the reasons why you get confused is because the capitalist system lets you think that you can think about something without being involved in that which you think about. Matter of fact, they let you think you're thinking. I see it all the time. You can even look at the television and watch a basketball game. People in the stands will criticize every basketball player. They've never been on the basketball court. Unless you played basketball, you cannot criticize any basketball player. It is clear, unless you're involved in that which you're thinking about, you can't think about it. None of you who have not taken physics cannot think about physics. Of course, you can think about it. But the only way you can think about physics is when you're studying physics, involved in physics. The only way you can think about mathematics is when you're involved in it. If you say you are for world peace and you think about world peace, but you do absolutely nothing for world peace, you're not thinking about world peace. You're just thinking you're thinking about world peace. So it is with the struggles of our people. I am sure that if I asked all of you, do you want our people struggle to advance? Every hand must go up. The truth is so powerful that even liars must spit it out. Of course. Every hand would go up. Oh, everybody wants the people to advance. Everybody wants us to get equality. Everybody wants terrorism to stop against us. Everybody wants racism to stop. Then you ask, how many are involved in the struggle to advance the people's cause? The hands will go down. But those who are not involved in the people's struggle, they still think that they think about the people's struggle. We must stop this for you. You must come to understand that the only way you can think about your people's struggle is when you are involved in your people's struggle. And if you're not
Hello family, welcome to AfricanEsquireTV.com. I'm your host, Tierney Cherie. If you have not already, please subscribe to AfricanEsquireTV.com and also subscribe to the channel on YouTube. Guys, what we're going to talk about today is the issue of Pan-Africanists moving forward, and particularly moving forward inside of the atmosphere of the ADOS movement. Now, before I get into this, I do want to just prerequisite and say, you know, what I'm talking about when I'm talking about the ADOS movement. And I want to do that because I'm noticing a lot more and more. There's a lot of people who align with the ADOS movement only partially. And what I mean by that is, the ADOS movement was started by Yvette Carnell and Antonio Moore. They let out a lot of sentiment that is against Pan-Africanism. They have been vehemently very xenophobic in a lot of their rhetoric, and you can see that they have kind of put themselves in one arena, whereas other people who have been calling themselves ADOS don't necessarily align with their sentiments. So what I want to say is that if you just call yourself ADOS but you don't disengage from being an African person, meaning you felt like the fact that ADOS is something to particularly, is a label to particularly separate yourselves as African descendants of slavery, but you do not deny your African heritage, you do not deny yourself as being an African, you do not also align with the Pan-Africanist ideology, this video is not talking about you when I'm talking about ADOS. I'm talking particularly about people who have called themselves descendants of slaves as a way to isolate African people in the United States from the whole diaspora, and have done so because they thought that they would get more progress from doing so. These are the people who can't just fight for the progress of Africans in the United States, but they feel the need to demean other Africans from around the diaspora and also say things that just aren't true about Africans throughout the diaspora. For example, you hear people saying things like, oh, there's no Pan-Africanist in Africa, Africans don't call themselves African. These are things that are so untrue. If you've been watching this channel, you should know by now that these things are completely false. I posted videos of Julius Malema. There's plenty of Pan-Africanists, Kemi Siba, who have espoused Pan-Africanist sentiment, who have stated that they see themselves as African. The president of Ghana. I mean, there's so many that it's just ridiculous to try to even name everyone. And of course, you know, the professor Lumumba. There's so many people who are Pan-Africanist in this current atmosphere. So these are things that, you know, it's kind of annoying to respond to, but that's kind of why I wanted to make this video, because I feel like as Pan-Africanists, and when I say Pan-Africanists, I'm meaning people who see the value in a united global African front. Meaning a united front of African people who are going to fight for liberation, because we understand that if I'm in the United States, I cannot have liberation when there's no free African country. If you're inside of if you're inside of Japan, you can't have liberation. If you're inside of Canada, you can't have liberation. And similarly, the people of the diaspora, we cannot isolate ourselves and not see the connection between our common oppression. So, for example, whenever you have Africans in the UK who are protesting against racism and injustice, if you can't understand that they're protesting against the same system that we protest against in the United States, and it might not be labeled the same, it might not look the same because, you know, every single country has their own particular differences, but it is the same nonetheless, because it all comes from the root of white supremacy. White supremacy is not a phenomenon that just exists inside of different countries. It's a global force. Understand that if white supremacy in the United States were ever to fall, it would not just fall on itself. You would have to have global white supremacy fall, because guess what? If the white power structure in the United States ceases, you best believe that the Europeans or the Chinese are going to come right in with their same version of that white power structure. And you might say, well, Chinese are not white. Well, it's a lot of it is very similar in how they operate to exploit African people. They will come right in with the same thing. So it's not simple to just say that we're fighting against white supremacy in the United States, institutional racism in the United States. Understand that the powers of the world are all complicit inside of this scheme to oppress African people in the U.S., in the Caribbean, everywhere. This is not just a single country thing. And understand that if there was for some reason that the white power structure failed in the United States, there are other white entities or other colonist entities that are more than willing to step in to exercise that same exploitation. So, excuse my little one. So, yes, this is not just a front that we can fight just in the United States. This is a front we have to fight in every single country that Black people are being exploited. So that is what Pan-Africanism is standing for. Now, I am a Pan-Africanist full and full, but I think that part of the problem with the ADOS movement is that we're existing inside of a social media era. And in social media, we get preoccupied with social media opinions. And what I mean by that is there are people who spend all day on Facebook just debating people. And I know this because I used to be one of those people. And so I realized at one point that I'm spending so much time on Facebook debating people about racism and stuff that, number one, I'm not changing the person's mind who I'm debating. Let's just first establish that. If you're debating someone on social media, 9 times out of 10, that person is not willing to concede any points. Now, every once in a while, you might find someone that's like, oh, maybe you give me something to think about, but that's very rare. Usually people are arguing on social media because they think that they are valid in their stance. And even if you do catch them in a contradiction or catch them being incorrect about something, those people more than likely are not going to admit that they're wrong. And because the reason is, a lot of that debating is more so about ego than it is actually about uncovering truth. Now, as I said, I have been that person to go back and forth with people on Facebook. And then I realized, number one, I'm wasting so much time going back and forth with these people. And none of these people really want to change their mind. Now, granted, there might be some chance that someone who is neutral inside of this area that I'm arguing about might see the conversation and might pick up some points. But the energy that I'm putting into arguing with this person, just for the offset chance that someone might pick up on this conversation we're having and run with it and say, hey, I think I want to explore this more. Trust me, you would be much better if you were speaking directly to those people. For example, let's say you were making Facebook videos just addressing the issue, talking to those people, rather than going back and forth all day with someone and just doing a 10-minute video. Just let them know your points. Do a 10-minute post, let them know your points, and let it be that. That's what I had to learn, because like I said, I wasted a lot of time going back and forth with people. And I noticed that a lot of us in Pan-Africanist movement, we are caught up in this social media craze of we have to respond to everyone who says something, no matter how baseless it is, no matter how ignorant it is, no matter how how invalid it is. Now, absolutely, we should call out truth. But my issue is, I feel like a lot of the Pan-Africanist movement, we're becoming the response to the ADOS movement, which is not correct to me because Pan-Africanism preceded ADOS. Pan-Africanism is an ideology that has been fought for since the days of Martin Delany. So the fact that we've taken our movement and we've gained a lot of momentum, I think, from the social media arguments, from the ADOS arguments, but understand that we're going to a point where all we have to offer is a counter to the ADOS narrative. And instead, what I think is that our energy has to go towards organizing. Our energy has to go towards actually showing that, hey, what you're saying is wrong. Because we can tell you it's wrong all day. Number one, again, people are not really on the internet. People are not really searching the internet nowadays so much to be told that they're wrong and to believe that. Instead, we could be organizing African people in the United States for our own good, and also connecting with other movements throughout the diaspora and putting our energy towards that. That to me would say a lot more than these conversations that we have, these debates that we have. And so that's what I just wanted to do this video, is to say that I feel like we as a people, we have to kind of understand, number one, I believe that the ADOS movement has reached its cap. And the reason I say that is because the idea of the ADOS movement, meaning we're going to separate ourselves and we're going to advocate for reparations because just for ourselves, and we're going to completely disengage from any type of Pan-Africanist unity. The idea of the ADOS movement to me has basically reached its full potential. And the reason is because if you look, the idea that we can just say, hey, we're going to not vote for you because you didn't mention anything about a particular black agenda. We're going to not vote for you because you're not speaking directly to black issues. Well, as you see, the politicians who are running for president and also the congresswomen and state and senators, they're not too concerned that we basically made this stance. A lot of us made this stance because they're kind of counting on the fact that, number one, they have bigger constituencies to address, meaning the white community in America is a bigger constituency. You have the Latino community in America, which is a bigger constituency. So when you have the black constituency saying, hey, we need you to particularly address these issues, and if you don't, we're not going to vote for you. And when they weigh those out, they're a lot more afraid of losing the white vote than the black vote. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying the black vote is not important. The black vote is absolutely important. It could tip the scales. However, if the black vote is threatening to not vote, if you do not talk about certain issues pertaining to black people, as opposed to these other communities are saying, well, we're going to vote because we hate Trump, so we're going to vote regardless. They're going to pay more attention to the people who are the bigger constituency, because if it's a lot more threat to them if those people turn towards another candidate than if black people don't vote like they should. Now, if you look at the way that they're still ignoring the reparations issue, there was really one candidate, Miriam Wilson, who was willing to talk about reparations inside of an unapologetic way. The other candidates, if they're willing to talk about reparations, they're only willing to talk about it in the arena of, we're willing to sponsor a bill that's going to study reparations. And to me, it's like, why do you need to study reparations? You know, it's the science is there, the data's there, the information's there. So you need to study reparations. So it's really a bill to basically get you to shut up if you haven't realized that. It was originally created as a bill to start the conversation, but really it's become a bill to say, hey, I'm not going to say I'm for reparations, but if I don't pitch something out there, y'all are not going to get off my back. So, hey, we'll study reparations. Now, they're willing to say that, but they're not willing to say that black people deserve reparations, despite the fact that not only black people have been enslaved in this country, but the fact that black people are still being enslaved in this country from the prison industrial complex, that we're still facing institutional racism, that we're still facing all of these barriers created from a white power structure that continues to exploit us and continue to eat off of us. That means nothing to them. What means more to them is the fact that if they say that black people deserve reparations, number one, it's a precedent that has not been set anywhere. There's no black people who have gotten reparations for colonialism or for slavery. But not just that, not only the fact that the United States probably could not actually afford to pay black people what they're actually owed, but aside from that, they have to deal with the fact that reparations the word black reparations is something that, for some reason, I don't know why, is very offensive to other groups. When you use that word with white people, they've done studies, Latino people, all of them get really upset because they feel like we're not deserved reparations. And I think a part of it is this psyche that, hey, we came to the United States and we didn't have anything and we were able to pull ourselves up. And because of that narrative that they espouse, they're able to feel self-assuring that, hey, you know, black people, they're not doing well because of themselves. This has nothing to do with the power structure, has nothing to do with what has been done to them, because, hey, we've gotten through what we've gotten through, completely discounting the fact that we did not come here on our own will, discounting the fact that we have faced the only race or group that can compare the level of discrimination that black people have faced is the Native Americans. Any other group who tries to compare themselves to us does not understand the full context of what has happened to our people. So because of this, they are able to feel self-assured for not asking for reparations. But at the same time, the politicians have a very high risk because of that, because if they say black reparations, then they're going to inevitably turn off their other power bases. Now, I'm saying all this to say that I'm going to just say it. Reparations are not going to happen in this political atmosphere, period. I'm sorry to tell you guys, it's not going to happen in this political atmosphere. Now, maybe another political atmosphere, maybe if we start organizing from the bottom up, maybe if we start showing out, and most importantly, build our economic base, then we can have that conversation. But right now, in this political atmosphere, people are more afraid of Trump. They're not afraid of you not getting your reparations. When people say, if you don't, the time is now, you better pay us our reparations, pay us what we owe. My question is, or what? What type of leverage do you have? Are you going to not fund their campaign? Well, unfortunately, our community does not have an economic base to say that. So what are you going to do? Pay the reparations or what? We don't have an or what because we don't have power. So it's not going to happen in this political atmosphere. I don't see it happening. And again, there will have to be a radical change. That's what we have to embrace. It's not going to happen the way that things are. There will have to be a radical change from the bottom up, and starting in the black community, that we build our infrastructure, that we build our organizations before we can even get to the point where we could confidently say that we're about to get our reparations. We have to have an or what. If you don't have an or what when it comes to politics, they're not going to pay you attention, because guess what? Like AIPAC, every single politician in Washington is afraid to say anything that disagrees with AIPAC. They're afraid to say anything against the regime of Israel, right? But that's because they have an or what. They have an or what because of the money that they donate to these politicians. That's their or what. So what's our or what? You know, when we say you better pay us what we're owed. So what are you going to do if they don't? Because guess what? There are other communities that are more of a threat to them whenever they give them ultimatums, and we're just not that threat right now. So if we're not focused on being that threat and saying that, hey, you need to give us what we're owed based on this, that, and a third, then there's no point in even thinking that we're going to get it in this election cycle. And there's certainly no point in basing your voting, and I'm not saying vote or don't vote, but there's no point in basing everything on that one issue when we don't have the organization as a people to actually make that type of demand. Now, that being said, I don't think it's going to, I don't think it's going to happen in this political atmosphere, but I think that there are things that can happen in this political atmosphere. And one of them is that we as a people can become organized. We as a people can finally understand, you know, we've had a black president. We've had a racist president, an outwardly racist president, because if you look back at other presidents, you'd have a hard argument saying that they did not practice racism explicitly or implicitly. But we've had a black president. Like, you know, it's so funny to me when you look at the black organization or black leaders. The black bourgeoisie would be the proper way to categorize them. People like, you know, I don't want to call anyone out, but there's the black bourgeoisie. They say the same things. Like, I'll just call someone out. Like Al Sharpton, they'll say, "Oh, you know, this election is crucial. This election is crucial," and it's like, okay, because of Trump. Well, okay. Now I'll say for me personally, you guys can chime in with your comments. You know, my life has not changed significantly from Trump being president. What I mean by that is that I'm basically in the same position I would have been had Hillary Clinton won. The only thing that's different, I would say, is that I do know that Trump has definitely boldened the the protests, emboldened the actions, and the racist sentiment surrounding a lot of white nationalist groups. So if anything, whenever I travel outside of, you know, where I live, I do look over my shoulder a little bit more. That's the big thing. But other than that, my life has not changed significantly since Trump being president, right? But we hear the black bourgeoisie saying, you know, this is it, guys. You know, we have to vote. We have to vote. We have to show out. And my question is, okay, if we vote, I understand Trump. We don't want Trump to be president again. I understand completely. But if we vote and get him out, what good is there for us? So, okay, next time, let's say there's a black candidate. What good is there in that for us? Like, they really haven't shown us what good is there in that for whenever we vote. Because this idea that, okay, we're going to do it this time, guys. We got to do it. Everything's on the line. Well, black people have been having the highest voter turnout rate of any community. Yet, despite that fact, we have not gotten anything from it. So the question is, why is that where our attention is in voting? Like, where's the substantive gains from just putting all of our emphasis in voting? So that can't be the solution. But then you look at other things like organizing, and particularly organizing with other people who are similarly situated as us outside of the United States. Organizing with blacks in Canada, organizing with blacks in Haiti. There's a revolution going on in Haiti right now, if you don't know. Organizing with blacks inside of Zimbabwe, like organizing with our people. That, to me, is where our attention should be, instead of inside of these election politics that have not yielded us anything. Think about it. We've had the right to vote for almost 70 years now, and we've gotten what for it? We've gotten what? As a people, what have we gotten? Nothing. And so the question is, you know, why are we so fixated on something that has not yielded us too many gains? Now, aside from that, back to my Pan-Africanist brothers and sisters, I think that as things are turning, and as I said, I think the ADOS movement has reached its peak, as every movement does reach its peak, because I think that they are not organized to bring about the changes that they're demanding. Now, as they have reached their peak, the question is, what do we as Pan-Africanists have to offer the movement other than counter arguments? Because we can offer counter arguments, but are we organizing? Are we giving the same energy to organizing as we are with arguing with people? Trust me, I see all types of comments, especially on YouTube, and there's some that are so ridiculous, and I leave them because I try not to remove people's comments unless it's very, unless it's like just straight out ignorant, unless you're calling me something out my name. Like, I'll leave your ignorant comment more times than not. But I can respond to comments, and sometimes I see myself, reaching for my phone. I'm like, oh, I want to say something so bad because what you said is so dumb, honestly. And I don't. Not because I can't, not because, it wouldn't take that much out of me, but I'm like, listen, number one, this person's not going to change their mind from me responding to them. Number one. Number two, what could I be doing that's going to be more purposeful than just responding to this person? And the question is organizing. We have to organize. Nothing else matters if we're not organized. Nothing. I've been really upset just taking time to think over, what should we be doing? Because, for example, I was watching some video. It was posted by Real News Network. It's a station out in Baltimore. You should subscribe to their channel. They have good content. And I was watching a video that they did about Africa. It was a recent video, and they were talking about the fact that all the countries are waging a new type of colonialism, neo-colonialism on Africa. All the powerful countries. So whether it's Russia, whether it's the U.S., whether it's China, everyone's looking at Africa and everyone's exploiting Africa. And, when I'm just listening to all the things that are happening and the fact that our people are not even organized to do anything about it, nothing's organized to do anything about it. When you look at what's going on, the most angry thing is in the Congo. The Congo is suffering so much because of their richness, because of the richness that is in their soil, because of the fact that the people have been blessed. It became a curse. So you have all the countries of the West, they're trying to get stuff out of Congo, because all of us, you know, this mic right here, this laptop I'm speaking on, all of us are dependent on these materials that come from the Congo for our technology. And so our people are being exploited because of that. And the fact that our people are not organized right now to do anything about it, that just got me upset, because it doesn't make sense. And then when you go into the fact that all of our people, no matter where we are, we're not organized for our own selves. We're not organized to protect our own selves inside of our own communities. Look at how many police have gotten off with killing black men in America. Look at how the prison industrial complex, it still baffles me that this is just happening. And the fact is, we haven't figured out a way to undo the system of mass incarceration. And so I think a lot of us are just giving up, because the type of struggle that would take, we're just not ready to go through it. So our people are still inside of these cages like animals. You have people who are non-violent offenders, people who just sold some weed back in the 90s, who are facing life sentences. You have children inside of jail for crimes that they have not committed. Like, you have so much going on with the prison industrial complex. And not just that, those who have committed crimes, when you look at the fact that those crimes, the fact that we're committing those crimes, we've been put inside of a situation where basically our survival has been criminalized. Because if they don't have any jobs in our communities, they don't have education in our communities, they don't have any type of way to get out of the situation that you're in inside of our communities, and the only thing that they have is illegal drugs. The only thing that they have is type of ways that you can move money to try to get something. Then that's our survival, and our survival has been criminalized inside of our communities. So there are things happening, and we're not organized for them. We're not organized. And to me, we as a people, we have the obligation as Pan-Africanists to be organized, not just organized for places, you know, outside of where we are. Because I'll say myself also, like, we get so preoccupied with organizing only, you know, in Africa, but also in our communities, because, you know, my next video is going to be about this. We are also colonized in the United States. And so when we start recognizing ourselves as colonized people, then we actually can see that it's not that hard to get people to align with what's going on outside of the country, to align with what's going on inside of Barbuda, what's going on inside of England, and what's going on outside of that, because we're all a part of the same struggle, and that is against exploitation from the white supremacist power structure. So I say all this to say, I want my people, my Pan-Africanist brothers and sisters, to really get serious about organizing. And please organize with me, because I'm always trying to think of ways that we can best do this in order to help our people. You know, we have to have long-term goals and we have to have short-term goals. I definitely have my long-term goals together. The short-term goals are the ones that are harder, because what do you do in here and now that you can consistently do to actually chip away from the power structure, chip away from the relationship of exploitation between Africa and the West, and Africa and the East, and Africa and everyone? How do we actually chip away from that? And the issue is, we're not ready and we're not poised to do so. So, like I said, you know, anyone organizing, anyone trying to do something, by all means, let's organize as a collective and actually do something, because it doesn't matter how smart we are as Pan-Africanists. It doesn't matter how well we can cite Nkrumah. It doesn't matter how well we can cite Lumumba and Sankara. If we are not organizing, doing something to organize, then all we are is voices. All we are is people just saying things baseless. And by the way, I'm not saying this to say that most Pan-Africanists are not organizing. Most are. But I'm saying this to say that the energy that we put inside of fighting the ADOS, some of us, I think, are getting caught up with this movement instead of getting caught up with our own organizing capacity. So that's all I have to say, you guys. I would like to see your comments, and I will see you guys in another video.